right now. Tonight, there are 11 U.S. states that owe more money than they will ever realistically collect in taxes. Not in 20 years. Not theoretically. Right now. And if you live in one of them, if you're renting an apartment or you own a home or you're counting on a government pension, this video is going to show you exactly what that means for your life. Because what's happening across the United States isn't a political talking point anymore. It's a math problem. And the math is losing. Welcome to the real story of how American states are quietly breaking. Through layoffs that never made headlines. Through debt that keeps growing while politicians argue. And through a migration wave so massive that it's reshaping entire regions of this country. Let's start with a number nobody wants to say out loud. But before we dive in, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment. I subscribe. And I'll personally welcome you into the family. With that said, let's get started. Section 1. The Debt Bomb. $5.96 trillion. That is a combined unfunded pension liability sitting across U.S. public pension systems right now. According to a 2023 Stanford Institute for Economic Policy Research study. To give that number some scale, that's larger than the entire GDP of Japan. And it's a 43% increase from pre-pandemic levels. Now, most people hear pension liability and they tune out. So let me make it concrete. In Illinois, one state, there's $317 billion owed to public workers, teachers, firefighters, transit workers, city employees, people who work their whole careers with a specific promise. That's $65,000 owed per household in the state. The state does not have it. Here's what that looks like for a real person. Marcus Webb is 58 years old. He's lived in Chicago his entire life. He spent 30 years working in city transit, fixing buses, maintaining rail lines, because someone told him that if he gave 30 years, he'd get $3,400 a month for the rest of his life. In 2023, his pension fund sent him a letter. The letter said his benefit could be cut by up to 22% within 3 years if the state didn't restructure. 22%. That's $748 a month. Gone. On a fixed income. After 30 years of showing up, Marcus didn't collapse. He adapted. He started a commercial cleaning business. Something he never planned to do at 58. He works evenings and weekends now. I can't trust the government to keep a promise they made 30 years ago, he told me. He's not angry. He's just done trusting. And Marcus isn't alone. There are hundreds of thousands of public workers across states like New Jersey, Connecticut, California, and Kentucky, all ranked in the top 6 most fiscally stressed states by The Truth in accounting's 2024 Financial State of the States report, all watching the same math play out in their retirement statements. But here's the thing about pension debt. It doesn't knock on your door. It just slowly, quietly poisons everything else. The roads, the schools, the services. Because every dollar paying down a pension promise is a dollar not fixing anything else. And when things stop getting fixed, people start leaving. Section 2, the Great Exodus. Between 2020 and 2024, California lost over 500,000 net residents. New York lost 700,000. Illinois lost 300,000. These aren't people going on vacation. These are people selling homes, pulling kids out of schools, packing moving trucks, and not coming back. The U.S. Census Bureau confirmed it. Moving company data confirmed it. U-Haul pricing, which goes up when demand from a city outpaces supply of trucks, confirmed it. When it costs 3 times more to rent a truck out of San Francisco than into San Francisco, the math tells you which direction people are flowing. And where are they going? Florida, Texas, Tennessee, the Carolinas. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Sandra Okafor is a 44-year-old elementary school teacher. She taught in Sacramento for 11 years. In 2022, she sold her 3-bedroom house for $720,000, money she thought would set her up for life. She bought a 4-bedroom house in Nashville for $390,000. Her mortgage dropped by $1,400 a month. She cried driving away from California, not from sadness, from relief. I feel like I can breathe again, she said. But then she started watching her new city change. Her friends followed her. Her colleagues followed her. And Sandra watched Nashville, her relief, her escape, start to look like Sacramento did in 2015. A 2024 Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies report found that domestic migration is inflating housing costs in destination states by an average of 19% above local income growth. You read that right. People fleeing unaffordable places are making their destination places unaffordable. The escape routes are getting crowded. Florida's property insurance has become the most expensive in the nation, with average premiums up 102% since 2020, forcing some insurers to exit the state entirely. Texas carries $65 billion in unfunded teacher pension debt. The problems people ran from are showing up in slower motion, where they ran to. So, some people did what once would have been unthinkable. They left the country entirely. Section 3. Americans going global. The U.S. State Department estimates that 9 million Americans now live permanently outside the United States. That's a 40% increase since 2016. And the average age of Americans relocating abroad, it's dropped to 38. These aren't just retirees chasing warm weather. These are engineers, teachers, designers, entrepreneurs, working-age people, tax-paying people, the exact people states need to fund their crumbling fiscal structures. They're going to Portugal, Mexico, Panama, Colombia, Costa Rica, Thailand, Vietnam, and this isn't hypothetical. Lisbon's real estate rose 34% in 3 years, partly fueled by American demand. According to Eurostat data from 2024, Portugal's Interior Ministry logged a record 78,000 American residency applications between 2021 and 2024. James and Patricia Holden are 52 and 50. They lived in Austin, Texas. James was a mid-level tech manager, or he was, until the 2023 tech contraction hit, and his company eliminated his entire division in a single afternoon Zoom call. Patricia freelanced in graphic design. She could work from anywhere. Their Austin rent was $3,800 a month. James's severance lasted 4 months. Someone in James's LinkedIn feed posted about Medellin, Colombia. He almost scrolled past it. He didn't. Total monthly cost of living in Medellin, $1,100. They made the move. James now consults remotely for 3 U.S. companies. Patricia has more clients than ever. They're saving $2,000 a month, money they never saw in Austin. America will always be home. James told me over a video call from their apartment with a mountain view. But home got too expensive to live in. If you're watching this and this sounds appealing, don't buy a one-way ticket tomorrow. The smart move is a cost of living audit first. Calculate your actual monthly spend down to the dollar: rent, food, transport, health, entertainment. Then look up the same lifestyle cost in 5 different countries. The results are usually shocking enough to make you reconsider everything. But here's what the migration wave leaves behind that nobody's talking about. Section 4, the fiscal death spiral. When high earners leave a city, tax revenue drops. When tax revenue drops, services get cut. When services get cut, more people leave. When more people leave, tax revenue drops further. Economists call this municipal fiscal stress acceleration. It is a death spiral, and it has a history. Detroit declared bankruptcy in 2013 with $18 billion in debt. But here's the thing. The warning signs were visible in 1970. 43 years of slow, grinding decline, and then a cliff. Several U.S. cities are now at different points on that same trajectory. Chicago, Illinois, $37 billion in debt. Pension payments consuming 22 cents of every dollar the city collects. Bridgeport, Connecticut, filed for bankruptcy protection in 2023. Reversed it. May file again. Memphis, Tennessee, 40% of residents below the poverty line. $2.1 billion in pension debt. Harvey, Illinois, already defaulting on debt obligations. In some districts, the city turned off the streetlights because it couldn't pay the electric bill. A 2024 Lincoln Institute of Land Policy study found 183 U.S. municipalities showing 3 or more early warning signs of fiscal distress. That's double the number identified in 2019. Double in 5 years. If you own property or rent in an American city and you want to know if your city is heading toward a cliff, there are 3 things to monitor right now. 1. Has your municipality missed a bond payment in the last 3 years? 2. Do pension liabilities exceed 20% of annual revenue? 3. Has net migration been negative for 3 or more consecutive years? 3 out of 3? You are watching Detroit in slow motion. But here's where the story gets more complicated. Because some economists look at all of this, the people leaving, the city struggling, and they say, this is actually the correction working. Section 5. The controversial counterargument. Wait, what if the breaking isn't the problem? What if it's the cure? Some supply-side economists make this argument. Population outflows from high-tax, high-regulation states are market correction at work. When people vote with their feet, they force governments to compete or collapse. States that lose residents either reform their fiscal policies or they fail. States that gain residents have to earn the right to keep them, and there's evidence this is actually happening. Texas cut its franchise tax for small businesses 3 times between 2021 and 2025, specifically trying to attract migrating entrepreneurs. Tennessee eliminated its investment income tax. Florida restructured its homestead exemption to favor long-term residents over property speculators. These are real policy changes driven by migration pressure. But researchers at the Brookings Institution push back on this optimistic reading in their 2024 Urban Economic Outlook. Here's their argument. States don't reform under population pressure. They cut services for the people who can't leave, the poor, the elderly, the disabled, the people who have no U-Haul option, no savings to relocate, no remote job that travels with them. When fiscal pressure hits, it doesn't hit the people who are already leaving. It hits the ones left behind. Dorothy Raines is 71. She's a retired school librarian in Chicago. She spent 28 years running a neighborhood library branch on the South Side. Her income is $1,640 a month from Social Security plus an $820 pension from the state of Illinois. In 2024, her neighborhood library closed. Budget cuts. Then her local bus route was eliminated. Same reason. Dorothy couldn't drive. Couldn't afford an Uber on her income. Couldn't physically move to a new city. Her daughter finally moved her to Indianapolis. I didn't choose to leave Chicago, Dorothy said. Chicago left me. That is what the fiscal death spiral looks like from inside it, not a data point. A 71-year-old woman losing the city she built her life in. Not because she chose to leave, but because the city ran out of money to remain her city. So, in the middle of all this collapse and migration, who is actually getting it right? Section 6. The states that are winning. Not every state is in crisis. A handful are genuinely thriving right now, and what they have in common tells us exactly what's going wrong everywhere else. Utah, the lowest unfunded pension liability per capita in the country. AAA credit rating. The fastest growing GDP per capita in the U.S. between 2021 and 2024. How? In 2010, before the pension crisis was a national conversation, Utah passed sweeping pension reform, moved new public employees into a hybrid system, locked in sustainability before the pressure hit. They made the hard choice early, when it was still a choice. North Carolina. The state is phasing its corporate tax rate to 0% by 2030. Since 2022, it has attracted $35 billion in new manufacturing investment. Toyota, Apple, and Google all have major facilities coming. Net migration has been positive for 6 consecutive years. Idaho, population grew 18% in 5 years. And despite that growth, housing affordability still sits 31% above the national average. The key, early investment in rural infrastructure kept growth distributed across the state, not just crushed into one city. The 2024 Alec Laffer State Economic Competitiveness Index ranked Utah, North Carolina, and Idaho in the top 5 for economic outlook. Same states topping the census migration data. This is not a coincidence. If you're making a decision about where to live, where to invest, or where to plan a business, here is your 3-metric framework. Net migration trend over 5 years. Unfunded pension liability as a percentage of state GDP. And bond credit rating trajectory. Specifically, whether the rating is being upgraded or downgraded. Those three numbers will tell you more truth than any political advertisement ever will. But even the winning states face a wild card that none of them fully control. Section 7, the federal wild card. The U.S. national debt crossed $36 trillion in early 2025. Interest payments on that debt now exceed $1.1 trillion per year. That's more than an entire defense budget spent on interest alone every year. And here's why this matters for your state, regardless of which state you're in. On average, 32% of state budgets come from federal transfers, Medicaid funding, infrastructure grants, education support. Federal money keeps state governments functioning. If the federal government cuts spending to address its own debt, and the Congressional Budget Office in 2025 projects that interest payments will consume 27% of all federal revenue by 2034, meaning something must give, states lose a third of their operating budget. Automatically, what does something must give look like in practice? Block grants replacing open-ended Medicaid funding, meaning states bear more costs with fixed money. Infrastructure spending freezes, meaning the roads and bridges don't get fixed. Education funding caps, meaning schools that are already understaffed lose more. Every one of these scenarios lands hardest on the states already under the most pressure. This isn't doomsaying. The United States has rebuilt itself from worse. After the Civil War, after the Great Depression, after 2008. But each time, the people who came through it weren't the ones who waited for rescue. They were the ones who saw it coming. The United States is not finished, but some American cities are much closer to finished than their mayors will admit. Some states are running a fiscal experiment that history says ends badly, and some people, millions of people, have already made their choice about whether to stay, move within the country, or leave entirely. The question isn't whether this is happening. The numbers tell you it is. The question is, what does it mean for you? So here's what I want to know. Drop your state in the comments right now and tell us, do you feel your city or your state starting to break around you? Or have you already left? And if you left, was it worth it? Because based on everything we covered today, your answer might tell us more about where America is heading than any economist report.